Let me tell you something. The battle you're fighting right now is not in your bank account, not in your relationships, not even in your body. The real battle is in your mind. Because when your mind gets anxious, your peace gets stolen. And when your peace is stolen, your purpose gets paused. You can't produce power from a panicked mind. You can't receive direction when your heart is full of distraction. So today, I'm going to show you how to quiet that anxious mind, not by ignoring it, but by training it. Because a quiet mind is not a weak mind. A quiet mind is a weaponized mind. Let me tell you something. The battle you're facing right now isn't in the world outside of you. It's happening inside your own mind. You're not tired because you've been doing too much. You're tired because your mind hasn't stopped running. Anxiety keeps whispering stories that sound like truth, but they're just noise that's keeping you from hearing the direction you actually need. You see, anxiety doesn't begin with a crisis, it begins with a conversation. Somewhere something starts talking to you in your head, and instead of questioning it, you start believing it. The anxious mind doesn't ask, is this true? It just reacts. But here's what I need you to understand. Every thought is not your truth. Every voice is not your voice. You've got to learn to recognize what's really speaking to you. Most people don't realize that their anxious thoughts have personalities. One sounds like fear, another sounds like doubt, and another one sounds like guilt. And the reason they sound so convincing is because they use your own voice. The mind can disguise lies in familiar tones. And when you don't discern who's talking, you'll treat every thought like it's a command. You start obeying fear like it's your boss. You start negotiating with worry like it's your mentor. But when you slow down long enough to ask, who told me that? Something powerful happens. You expose the lie behind the anxiety. You start seeing that most of the noise in your head isn't instruction, it's interruption. An anxious mind loves to interrupt your peace with counterfeit urgency. It makes you believe everything is an emergency. You need to fix this right now. You're falling behind. Everyone else is doing better than you. It keeps ringing alarms that have no real fire behind them. You begin running from one false alarm to another until you're exhausted, not because life is so hard, but because your attention has been hijacked. That's what anxiety does. It steals focus. And once it has your focus, it controls your emotions, your decisions, and even your destiny. So the first key to quieting your anxious mind is to separate the signal from the noise. Recognize when your thoughts are leading you and when they're luring you. You can't win a war when you keep believing the enemy's announcements. Fear says, you're not ready. Doubt says, you're not enough. Worry says, what if it all goes wrong? But here's the truth. Fear doesn't know your future. Doubt doesn't see your potential. Worry doesn't understand your preparation. You've got to talk back to your thoughts. Too many people let their minds talk to them all day, but never talk back. You sit there and let your mind narrate your failure before it's even happened. You let your imagination become your enemy instead of your instrument. If you want to quiet your anxious mind, you've got to reclaim your mental authority. You've got to tell your mind, you work for me, I don't work for you. Anxiety gets louder when you give it an audience. Every time you feed the fear with attention, it grows. You start rehearsing the worst case scenario until it becomes your expectation. And here's the catch. You begin living as if the thing you fear has already happened. You act like you've already lost. You shrink like you've already failed. You cry like you've already been broken. But none of that is real. It's a shadow, and shadows can't hurt you unless you bow to them. When you begin to recognize that your anxious mind is just projecting fears that haven't occurred, you start reclaiming your present moment. Because the anxious mind never lives in the now. It lives in what if, but peace only lives in what is. Recognizing what's really speaking means listening with discernment, not with desperation. It means you stop reacting to every thought as if it's a prophecy. The mind is like a radio. It's always broadcasting something. But you have the power to change the station. You can tune out fear and tune into faith. You can stop amplifying the voice that drains you and start amplifying the one that strengthens you. But that won't happen automatically. You have to make a decision. I will not let my emotions be managed by lies, because that's what anxiety is, a well-spoken liar. It sounds wise, it sounds rational, but it's rooted in fear, not in truth. When you recognize what's really speaking, you stop being controlled by every negative narrative your mind throws at you. You start separating your identity from your insecurity. You realize, I'm not anxious. I'm just experiencing anxious thoughts. That shift right there gives you power, because once you stop identifying with the thought, you can start observing it. You can let it pass without letting it poison your peace. That's how you win this battle, not by silencing your thoughts, but by identifying which ones deserve your energy and which ones don't. Every thought is an invitation. Some invite you into peace, others invite you into panic. You get to decide which invitation you accept. So when that anxious voice starts whispering again, don't fight it. Question it. Is this true? Is this useful? Does this serve my purpose? If it doesn't, let it go. Because peace isn't the absence of thoughts, it's the presence of clarity. And clarity comes from recognizing what's really speaking to you. Most people spend their lives meditating on their problems instead of their promises. They wake up thinking about what's missing, what's wrong, what could go wrong next, and then they wonder why peace never shows up. You can't experience peace if your mind is chained to problems. Problems were never meant to be your meditation. They were meant to be your motivation. The truth is, whatever you focus on, you magnify. When you keep staring at the problem, you make it bigger than it really is. When you anchor your mind to what's uncertain, your emotions follow the chaos. But when you anchor your mind to what's eternal, your peace becomes unshakable. Most people have trained their minds to be storm chasers. Wherever there's trouble, that's where their attention goes. They replay old mistakes like a highlight reel, constantly reviewing their pain instead of their potential. They tell themselves stories about what's not working until those stories become their reality. That's why anxiety grows. It feeds on attention. But you can shift your focus. You can anchor your mind to something that doesn't move when everything else does. You can build your peace on a foundation that isn't based on feelings or circumstances, because peace doesn't come from avoiding the storm. Peace comes from knowing who you are in the middle of it. Anchoring your mind to a promise means choosing to believe something greater than your circumstances. It means deciding that no matter what happens around you, you won't let it define what's happening inside you. You don't deny the problem exists. You just refuse to give it power. You acknowledge it, but you don't worship it. You face it, but you don't feed it, because what you feed grows and what you starve dies. If you feed fear, fear will multiply. If you feed faith, peace will multiply. Your thoughts are the fertilizer for your future, so you better choose what you're planting. You've got to train your mind to anchor itself to truth. That's the only thing that can hold you steady when life starts shaking. Most people lose their peace not because they face too many storms, but because they never learned how to anchor their thoughts. They let the wind decide where their focus goes. One negative comment, one bad day, one delay, and they start drifting into worry. But an anchored mind doesn't drift. It stays grounded even when waves hit from every direction. The storm may be loud, but an anchored mind is louder. When you anchor your mind to a promise, you stop negotiating with fear. You stop giving anxiety permission to set the agenda. Fear says, what if it all falls apart? But your anchor reminds you, even if it does, I can rebuild. Doubt says, you've failed before, but your anchor whispers, I learned something last time. That's the difference between a drifting mind and an anchored one. A drifting mind reacts, an anchored mind responds. A drifting mind is moved by emotion. An anchored mind moves with intention. The more anchored your thoughts become, the less power anxiety has to pull you under. When you meditate on your problems, your mind becomes like a magnifying glass over your pain. Every detail looks bigger. Every issue looks impossible. And before long, you convince yourself that you're drowning in something you can actually walk through. But when you meditate on promises, when you focus on what's unchanging, on what's true, you begin to shrink the power of the problem. You start seeing solutions where you once saw obstacles. You start hearing direction where you once heard noise. That's how peace begins to enter, not by removing the storm, but by reorienting your focus. You see, peace isn't passive. It's not something that just shows up because you wish for it. Peace is a choice. It's an act of discipline. Every time your mind starts drifting toward fear, you pull it back. Every time worry tries to take the wheel, you take control of the steering wheel again. Anchoring your mind is an active process. You remind yourself daily that your peace is your priority, not your problems. Because problems can change in a moment, but promises are timeless. Problems may intimidate you, but promises will empower you. When you live from a place of anchored peace, you stop chasing temporary relief. You stop relying on distractions to numb the noise. You start moving with calm confidence. The world can be chaotic, the circumstances unpredictable, but your inner world stays still. That's when creativity returns. That's when clarity flows, because a calm mind can see what an anxious mind can't. Anxiety clouds vision, but peace reveals direction. Anchoring your thoughts to what's true isn't about ignoring reality. It's about defining it through a higher lens. An unanchored mind is easily influenced. It's blown around by opinions, trends, and fears. But when you anchor your thoughts in purpose, you become immovable. People may not understand your calm, but that's because your peace doesn't make sense to a panic world. You're no longer reacting to life. You're responding with power. You've stopped letting circumstances tell you who you are. You've stopped letting uncertainty decide your emotions. You've chosen to plant your mind in the soil of faith, stability, and focus. The next time anxiety tries to pull you under, pause and remember you have the power to choose what your mind attaches itself to. The storm is real, but so is your strength. You can keep meditating on your problems, or you can anchor your thoughts to something unshakable. One keeps you in chaos, the other keeps you in peace. The choice has always been yours. You can't quiet an anxious mind by trying to stop your thoughts. That's like trying to stop the wind with your hands. The mind doesn't respond to resistance. It responds to direction. The harder you try to silence your thoughts, the louder they get. But the moment you redirect and everything changes, anxiety feeds on repetition. It lives on the same loop of what if, what now, and what next. You've been thinking the same anxious thoughts so often that they've turned into reflexes. Your mind has memorized your fears. But if repetition built the anxiety, repetition can also break it. You can replace rumination with repetition. You can replace the loop of fear with a rhythm of faith. Most people don't realize how much their words shape their mental state. You think you're describing your life when you speak, but you're actually designing it. Every sentence you say about yourself is a seed planted in the soil of your mind. When you keep saying, I'm so anxious, you're watering the very thing you're trying to uproot. When you keep saying, I can't handle this, your mind takes that as instruction and starts shutting down your strength. You are programming your nervous system with your vocabulary. So if you want peace, you have to speak peace. If you want courage, you have to speak courage. If you want clarity, you have to speak clarity. The anxious mind loves to ask questions it can't answer. What if I fail? What if they don't like me? What if everything falls apart? And when you don't interrupt that pattern, those questions multiply until you're buried under them. But when you learn to replace those questions with truth, you take your power back. When fear says, what if it goes wrong? You respond, what if it goes right? When doubt says, you're not ready, you say, I've been preparing for this my whole life. When insecurity says, you don't have enough, you declare, I already have everything I need to begin. You can't control every thought that enters your mind, but you can control which ones you give a microphone to. Repetition is what transforms belief into identity. You didn't wake up anxious one day out of nowhere. You repeated thoughts of fear until they became familiar. The mind loves familiarity. It believes what it hears most often. That's why anxious people can't find peace even when things are going well. Their mind is addicted to the noise because it's been conditioned to it. You have to break that conditioning with consistent repetition of truth. The same way a song becomes stuck in your head after hearing it multiple times, truth can get stuck in your spirit if you play it enough. That's why you have to repeat words of strength every single day, not just when you feel weak. You have to feed your mind the same message until it finally accepts it as reality. When you replace rumination with repetition, your thoughts stop running wild. You begin to train your mind to follow direction instead of fear. It's like taming a wild horse. It doesn't happen in one moment of control, but in consistent moments of correction. Every time your mind drifts back to worry, you bring it back to truth. Every time it runs toward fear, you guide it back toward faith. This isn't denial, it's discipline. You're not ignoring what's happening, you're choosing the lens through which you see it. Because perspective doesn't change the situation, but it changes your strength within it. Anxiety often thrives in silence, in the space between your thoughts where your fears echo louder. But when you fill that silence with deliberate repetition, you silence the echo. That's why affirmations aren't just motivational. They're transformational. They give your mind something to focus on that builds you instead of breaking you. Every word you speak repeatedly begins to rewrite your internal script. You are reprogramming your mental software with the code of confidence. And the more often you repeat truth, the less room fear has to speak. Some people wait until they feel peaceful to speak peace, but that's backward. You don't speak because you feel because you speak. Your words create the environment your emotions live in. The tongue sets the thermostat of the mind. If you keep talking panic, you'll keep feeling panic. But if you start declaring calm, confidence, and clarity, your emotions will start adjusting to match your language. You can talk yourself into fear, or you can talk yourself into faith. Either way, your words are steering your life. When you begin this process, it won't feel natural at first. Your mind will resist because it's used to running on autopilot. It's been repeating anxiety for years, and now you're interrupting the pattern. But stay consistent. The brain learns through repetition, not intention. You can't think your way into peace. You have to train your way into it. Speak what you want to feel until you feel what you speak. The more you practice it, the more your nervous system starts aligning with the words you say. Eventually, your repeated truth becomes your new default. Every time anxiety rises, that's not your cue to spiral, it's your cue to practice. Catch the thought, challenge it, and replace it. Say it out loud if you have to, because sound breaks cycles, silence keeps them alive. The moment you start speaking truth over your thoughts, you interrupt the anxious rhythm. The repetition becomes your rescue. You are not powerless to your patterns. You are powerful enough to reprogram them. The words you repeat become the world you experience, and the voice you choose to echo determines the peace you walk in. Your peace is too valuable to leave unguarded. You can't live in peace if your environment keeps feeding your panic. Sometimes the reason your mind feels anxious isn't because something's wrong inside of you. It's because you're surrounded by the wrong noise outside of you. You keep trying to calm your spirit while standing in the middle of chaos. You're trying to find silence in a room full of distractions. You can't expect your thoughts to be still when your environment is constantly stirring them. Taking command of your environment doesn't mean controlling everything around you. It means curating what has access to your attention. There are some people whose energy is like static. They disrupt your frequency. You leave a conversation with them feeling heavier than before it started. That's not coincidence. That's atmosphere. Energy is contagious. And your peace is catching what your surroundings are carrying. If you stay around complaining voices, you'll start to sound like them. If you stay around fearful minds, you'll start to think like them. It's not that you're weak, it's that your mind is wired to absorb what it's exposed to. So if you want to quiet your anxious mind, you have to be intentional about what and who you expose it to. Peace doesn't visit loud places often. It prefers stillness. It grows in spaces where you can hear your own thoughts clearly. But too many people live with constant noise, social media notifications, negative conversations, endless comparisons. They wake up scrolling through other people's lives before they even center their own. That's why they start the day anxious before anything even happens. The noise steals focus before purpose even gets a chance to speak. You can't hear clarity if confusion is always louder. You can't hear direction if distraction keeps shouting. Taking command of your environment means learning how to create quiet even when the world refuses to. Sometimes peace isn't about adding something new. It's about subtracting what doesn't serve you. Look around your space. Look at the people, the conversations, the routines, the habits. Which of these bring you closer to calm and which ones keep you in chaos? You can't heal in the same environment that hurt you. You can't grow in the same environment that doubts you. You can't evolve in the same space where your old self feels comfortable. Every environment is either feeding your growth or feeding your fear. You must decide which one gets to stay. When you start protecting your peace, people who benefit from your chaos will call you selfish. They'll say you've changed, and they're right. You're finally changing from being drained to being disciplined. You're no longer available for everything that doesn't align with where you're going. You're no longer responding to every message, attending every event, or entertaining every opinion. You're creating space for your sanity. And in that space, peace begins to expand because peace doesn't coexist with clutter. It thrives in order. An anxious mind is often just a reflection of an overcrowded life. Too many commitments, too many voices, too much stimulation. When your calendar is packed, your clarity becomes scarce. You start living reactively, jumping from one demand to another, always behind, never centered. But when you take command of your environment, you take back your power to choose what deserves your time and attention. You begin living with intention instead of obligation. You stop saying yes out of guilt and start saying no out of wisdom. The more boundaries you build, the stronger your peace becomes. Commanding your environment isn't about isolation. It's about alignment. It's not about cutting everyone off. It's about connecting only where your spirit grows. It's about surrounding yourself with people who speak life, not fear, with mentors who stretch your thinking, not drain your energy, with spaces that encourage stillness instead of stress. You have to learn to be okay with silence. Some people can't stand quiet because silence forces them to face themselves. But that's where healing begins. When the noise fades, the truth gets louder. There's a certain strength in solitude. When you can be alone without feeling lonely, you've mastered your environment. You're no longer dependent on outside validation to feel valuable. You find peace not because everything is calm around you, but because you've learned how to carry calm within you. You become your own sanctuary. The world can spin in chaos, but you remain centered because your peace is protected by boundaries, not circumstances. Sometimes you have to detox your environment the same way you detox your body. Get rid of the toxins that pollute your peace. Limit the voices that make you doubt yourself. Remove the habits that keep you stuck in mental noise. Clean the space around you until it reflects the clarity you want inside you. Peace is not something you stumble upon, it's something you structure. You build it with every decision about what you allow in and what you keep out. You'll start noticing that once you take control of your surroundings, your thoughts naturally slow down. The inner noise begins to match the outer calm. You start responding to life from a place of stillness instead of stress. The same things that used to shake you no longer get a reaction because your environment no longer dictates your emotions. You do. You've learned that peace isn't passive, it's protective. It's something you guard, nurture, and maintain. The quieter your surroundings become, the louder your purpose begins to speak. An anxious mind can't find peace in a frozen body. When your thoughts are racing, your body tenses. Your shoulders tighten, your breath shortens, your stomach knots up. You try to think your way out of anxiety, but thinking is what trapped you in it. The body becomes the battlefield where the mind's chaos shows up. If you want to quiet your anxious mind, you have to start with motion. Movement sends a message to your nervous system that you're safe. Every step, every stretch, every deep breath tells your body, I'm not in danger anymore, because anxiety isn't just mental, it's physical. It's energy with no direction. And when you give it direction, you give it release. You can't pray for peace while your body is still bracing for war. Your body holds on to every worry your mind won't let go of. The tension in your neck isn't just stress, it's unspoken fear. The shallow breath in your chest isn't just fatigue, it's suppressed panic. You've got to move that energy through you or it will own you. Walk it out, run it out. Breathe it out. Your body is not your enemy, it's your instrument. It's how you communicate calm to your brain. When you move your body with purpose, you regulate your mind with power. Most people underestimate how deeply the mind and body are connected. When your mind believes you're unsafe, your body reacts the same way it would if you were being chased. Heart racing, muscles tightening, adrenaline rising. The body doesn't know the difference between a thought and a threat. That's why you can feel anxious sitting still in a quiet room. Your body is responding to the pictures your mind is painting. But you can interrupt that cycle. You can use movement and breath to send the opposite message. You can teach your nervous system to relax, even when your thoughts want to run wild. When you move, you remind yourself that you're in control. Anxiety tells you that you're powerless. It makes you freeze, disconnect, and overthink. But motion breaks the illusion of paralysis. Every small physical action is proof that you're not stuck. It could be something as simple as standing up, taking a deep breath, or stepping outside for air. Those small shifts create physiological changes that begin to calm your system, because motion changes emotion. You can't stay in a state of panic while intentionally moving with peace. Your body becomes the anchor that grounds your mind back to the present moment. Breathing is one of the most powerful tools you have to quiet anxiety, but most people do it unconsciously. When you're anxious, your breath becomes shallow and fast. You feed your body more carbon dioxide than oxygen, and that makes your brain think you're in danger. Controlled breathing flips that signal. When you take slow, intentional breaths, you activate your body's calming system. You teach your brain that everything is okay. You don't even need words. Your breath does the talking. It says, peace is my position, not my pursuit. When you master your breath, you master your presence. You stop living in the what if and start living in the right now. Deep breathing anchors you to the present moment, the only place peace actually exists. It slows your heart rate, clears your mind, and brings you back into your body. It's like pressing reset on your nervous system. The next time anxiety tries to climb into your chest, stop and breathe intentionally. 4 seconds in, hold for 4 seconds out, hold again. Repeat it until your body remembers calm. The mind may resist at first, but the body will eventually lead it home. The anxious mind wants to run away, but the calm body teaches it to stay. When you stay present, you remind yourself that most of the things you fear are happening only in your imagination. Your body becomes proof of safety in real time. You begin to notice the ground under your feet, the rhythm of your heartbeat, the sound of your breath. These are not just sensations. They are evidence that you are here alive and capable. The more attention you give to your body, the less control anxiety has over your mind. There's a reason why athletes, performers, and leaders use movement rituals before they step into pressure. They're teaching their bodies to carry calm into chaos. You can do the same before a stressful meeting, before a tough conversation, before facing something unknown. Breathe deeply, move intentionally, align your body with your purpose. Because when your body is steady, your mind follows its lead. The body sets the rhythm, and the mind dances to it. You'll begin to realize that peace isn't just a mental state, it's a physical practice. You cultivate it through repetition, through presence, through awareness. The more you move consciously and breathe intentionally, the faster you interrupt anxiety's rhythm. You stop reacting to fear and start responding with focus. The anxious energy that once felt uncontrollable becomes fuel for discipline and awareness. Every time you move your body with purpose, you train your mind to follow calm instead of chaos. Movement becomes your medicine, breath becomes your reminder, and your body becomes your proof that peace is something you can create anytime you decide to command it. Anxiety often takes root when you start obsessing over outcomes you can't control. You replay possibilities in your head, trying to prepare for every scenario, but all it does is exhaust your peace. You imagine every version of the future except the one where things actually work out. You try to carry the weight of results that haven't even arrived yet. The anxious mind wants certainty, but certainty isn't peace. It's control disguised as comfort. Real peace comes when you surrender what you can't control and focus on what you can. You have to secure the process and release the outcome. That's how you reclaim your calm. When you're consumed by outcomes, you live in constant evaluation. Every move you make feels like a test. Every delay feels like failure. You measure your worth by results instead of effort, and that's where the anxiety grows. You start thinking, what if I do all this and it still doesn't work? But that question comes from fear, not faith. The truth is, success doesn't always come in straight lines. Sometimes what looks like delay is actually direction. Sometimes what feels like failure is just formation. You can't always see it in the moment, but peace doesn't require perfect vision. It requires trust. Trust is what turns uncertainty into alignment. It's what allows you to move forward even when you can't predict the outcome. The anxious mind wants to control every detail because it's afraid of disappointment. But control doesn't prevent pain, it prevents peace. You can't surrender and stress at the same time. You have to pick one. Surrender doesn't mean giving up. It means giving over. It means releasing your grip on what's not yours to hold. You do your part with excellence, and then you let life handle the rest. The process is your responsibility. The outcome is not. When you surrender the outcome, your energy shifts from panic to power. You stop wasting energy worrying about what might happen and start using that energy to prepare for what can. Anxiety multiplies when you keep staring at what's out of reach. But when you shift your focus back to the process, your confidence grows because the process is where progress happens. It's where your skills sharpen, your patience builds, and your character develops. You may not control when the results come, but you control how ready you'll be when they do. Most people miss peace because they think peace comes after success. They believe, once I get there, I'll calm down. But peace doesn't wait for your breakthrough. It's what allows your breakthrough to happen. You don't earn it at the finish line. You practice it along the way. You can be at peace even when you don't know the outcome, because peace doesn't depend on what's happening. It depends on what you're deciding to believe in the moment. When you decide that your effort is enough, anxiety starts losing its grip. You can only do what's within your reach, and that's all that's ever been required of you. The anxious mind wants to skip ahead, but peace happens one step at a time. You water the seed, but you don't dig it up every day to see if it's growing. You trust the process because growth is silent before it's visible. That's the same way peace works. When you stop obsessing over the timeline, you start appreciating the transformation happening right now. You start realizing that patience isn't waiting, it's believing while you wait. When you surrender, you also make space for guidance. Anxiety blocks inspiration because it fills your mind with noise. You can't hear direction when you're too busy trying to predict it. But when you quiet your grip on outcomes, clarity begins to rise. Ideas flow, timing aligns, and opportunities appear that you couldn't have forced if you tried. That's the irony. When you stop trying to control everything, life starts cooperating with you. You create flow instead of friction. You allow things to unfold naturally instead of anxiously forcing them into existence. The process is where power is built. Every time you choose consistency over control, you strengthen your peace muscle. You stop reacting emotionally to every change in circumstance. You stop spiraling when things don't go your way, because now you understand your job is progress, not perfection. You keep showing up, doing your part, learning, adapting, and trusting. You measure your success by faithfulness, not outcomes. That's the shift that silences anxiety. Anxious minds crave certainty, but peaceful minds crave purpose. When your focus is on purpose, you stop needing every outcome to validate you. You start moving with quiet confidence, knowing that your effort has meaning even when the results are unseen. You realize that surrender isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's choosing to trust that life is working for you even when it doesn't look like it yet. You stop fighting to control the uncontrollable and start mastering the controllable. Your focus, your discipline, your energy, your response. That's where your real authority lies. Every time you release the need to know what happens next, you make room for peace to meet you where you are. You stop rushing the process and start respecting it. You stop waiting for the right moment and start creating it, because peace isn't found in outcomes. It's found in ownership. When you own your effort and surrender the rest, your anxious mind finally finds rest.